Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your trusted weather source, bringing the weather without all that social media hype, here on your Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. Let's go see what we're tracking here for today, as we're expecting some severe weather out here in the plains here for this week. We got a few days of that. Doesn't look like anything too serious, but we'll break it down for you. We're also going to be looking at a potential for a bigger severe weather event a little bit later in the month. I think the tornado risk may be a little higher as we go into next week, and I'll explain why here in a second. And then we're also going to talk about the warmer conditions across the country. Yeah, it looks like a big part of it. We'll be seeing above normal temperatures as we wrap up the month of April and heading into May. Now, before we get going, first I want to say thank you to any new subscribers here on the channel. And if you're not yet a subscriber, what are you waiting for, my friends? Hit that subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner. Hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And as always, if you appreciate this report, please leave me a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. It does help a little bit with the algorithm. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the big picture here as we look at our latest satellite imagery. We have some rains here across the southeast, little rains here up in Iowa as well. Pretty quiet out here on the west coast. Really not much to show you there from Siena all the way down to Los Angeles. Looking pretty quiet. In fact, as we look at our watches and warnings for this morning, very quiet across the country. A couple of areas of fog there across the Florida Panhandle and Tennessee. Still waiting for these rivers to kind of settle down a little bit, but otherwise looking quiet. But we are going to watch parts of Texas, though, for later today. Let's look at our big surface map right now. We got a stationary boundary here across the south. This is going to kind of linger the rain threat across areas of the deep south for multiple days. I know North Georgia will be looking pretty wet into my area here for today. Seeing some rains up there across portions of Iowa going into Wisconsin this morning, back up into Minnesota. A little bit of snow still holding on there up there in extreme North Dakota for this morning. Let's go take a look at this radar down here into northern Alabama, getting some pretty decent rains here near Haleyville there just to the north and west of Birmingham. Sure going to be looking at wet weather going to Huntsville, and this will kind of continue to push up into the east into the northern portions of Georgia here for this afternoon. Now let's go ahead and break down the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. As I mentioned as our intro, we do have some multiple days of severe weather that we're going to be tracking here for this upcoming week. Nothing that's going to be too over the top, okay? The tornado risk will be running pretty low, but the wind threat and the hail threat will be a little elevated. So for today, the slight risk is going to be running here from Kansas back in here toward Texas. Now, I think this is going to be isolated in nature, isolated and scattered, so not everybody's going to see this, all right? So let's go ahead and break down the categories here. The tornado risk, as I mentioned, running pretty low, only running about 2% there, right there near the New Mexico and Texas border as those supercells start to kind of fire up in that zone. So, again, very low, but the wind threat definitely very elevated. Obviously, where that slight risk was, that's going to be running about 15% from Kansas back over toward Texas for that high wind threat. And that's also the same area where the hail threat will be running as well for today. What about day two? Let's go into your Wednesday. Now, again, looking at a marginal risk here, covering up toward Nebraska and getting up back here toward Texas once again. A little pocket of slight risk there and almost in the exact same zone as what we're going to see here for today. Just a little smaller element of it. Again, the tornado risk continue to run low, about 2% in that green zone, right along the foothills. Wind threat will be a little bit more elevated. That brown area, that is 5%, and the yellow, that's running about 10% in that same zone right there, up 10 to 15. Watch that. And then as far as the hail threat, not much of a change. The wind and hail threat are in the exact same areas. And then as we go in toward your Thursday, well, that's a little marginal pocket there across Kansas and into Texas. Once again, the same zones are going to be under the threat here for most of this upcoming week. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the excessive rain amount. We got a couple of pockets to watch here for today. Again, watching that little pocket there across Texas, and we got a little pocket there across Louisiana here for your day one outlook here for your Tuesday. Going into your day two, going into Wednesday, well, we got a little pocket there across the middle of the country, most likely Kansas and Oklahoma kind of under the gun, parts of Nebraska. And going into day three, going into Thursday, a little bit of a higher level there, slight risk there, running across portions of Kansas and Oklahoma, showing a higher risk for isolated pockets of some flooding into those zones. So because of that, if you look at our 3 to 7 day hazard, we're kind of highlighting this here. Multiple days of heavy rain here across portions of the Tennessee River Valley, coming all the way back into portions of, say, North Texas and the Ohio River Valley here. Multiple days for some heavy rains in these zones. And when I show you the rain totals, you'll see why here over the next 10 days. That's going to be looking fairly active. All right, let's go ahead and look at your forecast. We'll look at your models here first. We're looking at your jet stream level. That's 300 millibars. That's about 30,000 feet. It kind of shows you where the weather systems are going to be driving. What we're going to see here right now is a fairly weak energy here. It's coming across the areas of the South Plains. We're going to watch this energy back here. That's going to be diving in going to next week. That's going to be bringing us the higher the chances here for severe weather. So we're going to watch that next system kind of dive down here and coming out of the Gulf of Alaska, coming all the way down south. This is going to be this system here as it's diving into next week. This is going into this upcoming Saturday. And this is why I think next week with this jet energy that's kicking out here going into the 28th and 29th, that we'll have to watch this zone right through here for a greater chance, not only for severe weather, but potential for tornadoes. The jet stream energy is going to be higher than what we're seeing for today. That's why the tornado risk is pretty low. The jet energy is just not that high for today. So as this kicks on out to next week, that's going to be our higher indication here for potential tornadoes going into the south central plains and then going into the northern plains as we go into, say, going into the 28th, 29th, and 30th, those 3 days going into next week as we wrap up the month of April. Then as we go into May, looks like we got another little storm system out to watch here. This one's pretty potent here coming in toward the 5th. So this will kind of be up here toward kicking out of the northern plains and going into the Ohio River Valley. Have to watch that for maybe some severe weather there as well as we go into the 5th and 6th. And it looks like a fairly zonal flow here as we go in toward the 6th and 7th. And that kind of pattern, that means areas here across the deep south, y'all going to be warming up big time going into May. Going to be a lot of 90s, I think, heading in there as we go into the first week of May. All right, let's go ahead and look at short-term forecasts. What we're going to watch here for today, again, anything that breaks out in this zone going to be fairly isolated. I don't think it's going to be too widespread here. And then we're going to see a bigger eruption going into your Wednesday here across the middle of the country. So you're going to watch that closely. Watch that timestamp as I got to go through this. Again, we go through this afternoon. There's this is what you're going to have for your severe. Little pockets of severe weather here going towards 7, 8, 9 o'clock here for tonight into that zone where that slight risk was kind of lighting up for today. Now, we'll continue those showers across the south. That'll continue there. Then as we go in toward tomorrow afternoon, we got a bigger eruption. There it goes. You see kind of a higher coverage of severe weather potentially and heavier rains across Kansas and into Missouri. This goes into your Wednesday night. And that'll kind of move on into Missouri, and you've seen some more storms there, obviously, across portions of Texas and Oklahoma. So that's going into your Wednesday and Thursday. So we've got a couple of rounds to watch here as far as the heavy rain and isolated severe weather threat. Now let's look at your European model here. We're going to take this all the way out. Let me back this up. Sorry, I've got to reset that. And we're going to be taking this, again, going into your Wednesday morning, and we're going to take it on all the way through here. So one thing I will say, we can see the storm system for next week, this upper low. Here it is right here, going in toward this upcoming weekend. So we'll have some unsettled weather across California, some higher elevation lows. As this thing kicks on out, doesn't really light up that much here on the European model for that upcoming week as far as, seeing a real outbreak of severe weather as this moves in. You see the low kicks in here, the high plains here, up in here, going into your Monday, but not really showing a whole lot in there. I still think that'll change, just looking at the jet energy that we were seeing through there. So we'll see some storms flare up into that zone. This going into Tuesday. We'll have to watch that zone here going into the 29th. Now this kicks on to the east. Looks like just general air mass thunderstorms. You kind of see a lot of this here with the daytime heating across the deep south. Here's another system out here to the Pacific Northwest as well, going until the Friday the 2nd. This moves forward, and then we'll watch another storm system here. Here's the other one going into the 5th. This one will have to be watched. This one may have some severe components with that across the areas of the Ohio River Valley going into the 4th and 5th of May. So those are different zones we got to watch here. So we got the next few days to watch. Then we got to watch into early next week, and then going again into May. Those 3 little pockets that we have to watch. All right, so that's what we're tracking for the moment. Of course, it's subject to change. Anything beyond 7 days, is going to change a little bit. We're looking for model trends. That's the big thing when you're looking at long-range forecasting. All right, let's talk about the rainfall here. Let's look for the first 72 hours. Next 3 days. Obviously, we showed you that heavier rain threat here in the middle of the country. These were the thunderstorms. Some needed rain here across the southeast. Been a little bit on the dry side, especially across areas across North Georgia. And part of my sinuses, I am finding a little bit of a sinus infection today. So this keeps the rain here continuing right through the next 7 days. That's next 7 days. You see it kind of picking up quite a bit here in the middle of the country with some pretty decent rains from the high plains all the way down toward Texas. Continuing rains across the southeast. And then we're going to take this out to the rest of the 2-week period. You can definitely see very heavy rains across the middle of the country. Looks like above normal precipitation here. Still dry in the southwest and still wet here across the areas of the Pacific Northwest. Now we're going to finally take a look here at looking at the long range here. We're looking at the clash of the air masses. I like looking at the 850 millibar level at 5,000 feet to kind of get an idea where the warm air and the cold air are kind of doing their battlegrounds, where they're going to be setting up for potential severe weather threats here. And this week, you're not really seeing a whole lot this particular week. To finish off this week, we got the little disturbance to the south. Like, for example, we got some severe weather down here, but you're not really seeing a big clash of the air masses there for this week. That does change, though, going into next week, though. As we see that energy kind of push off to the east there, boom, there's that storm system there going into Monday and Tuesday. You see the big warm up here. Look at this. I mean, very, very warm air here, and we got the clash here as this kind of pushes this way. So going into the 28th and 29th, we got to watch that closely for that severe weather. That pushes off toward the east, so you got a pretty good push there. And a lot of red on this map. That means we're going to see a lot of abnormally warm temperatures across a big portion of the country here. And then here's our next system. Again, watch this. Again, you can see this going in toward the 4th and 5th. Here's our cool shot. And again, pushing that warm moisture out ahead of it. And that's our next round of severe weather. So we got 3 areas that we're watching. This kind of pulls on through. A little cool down here across the Great Lakes going in toward the 6th. Looks like a warm up here out in the west. And we got another storm system out here on the west coast with the cool down there. So we got 3 areas we're watching. Got the short term today, Wednesday, and Thursday. Nothing too big. Next week's looks a little more prominent because we have more jet energy with that one going in toward, let's say, the 27th, 28th, 29th, going into that week. And then obviously going into the 4th and 5th. So we got 3 different zones we're watching for severe weather. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Let's look at what we're looking as far as the Climate Prediction Center outlook is continuing for the rest of the month. Let's go back this up. Here we go. And you can kind of see here the 6th through the 10th, fairly near normal or below normal here out in the west, but a big above normal here from the 27th to the May 1st. And then a lot of the country warms up here. And that the long-range European model is kind of hinting at this with above normal temperatures, I should say, here from the 29th to the 5th. Above normal precipitation will continue through the middle of the country. We are showing that lighting up like a Christmas tree. A little below average here across the eastern seaboard, near normal out on the west coast. And then as we go deeper from the 8th to the 14th, taking us to May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, we're going to be looking at above normal precipitation continuing here in the middle of the country. So what this is telling me is we got multiple opportunities here with above normal precipitation in the country. And we're at this time of year, we got to watch multiple chances for severe weather. And right now, tracking 3 different zones that we're going to watch here. The short term for this upcoming week doesn't look overly bad. I think the tornado risk does come back up going into next week. We're going to have to track the timing and days on that, so stay tuned for that. And then we'll watch it again going into May. That May one looks like that's going to be more toward the Ohio River Valley. But again, that's a long range. We know that's going to change a little bit. I think next week, though, that's been pretty consistent with the models. I think we're going to see something we have to watch for next week where I think the tornado risk is going to come up. And speaking of that, I got to tell you, I'm really in love with our new severe weather product. I got to tell you, folks, we put a lot of hard work into this. I got a partner of mine been helping us kind of bring our technology up to par with some of the bigger boys out there. We may never get the audience like the big boys have, but I definitely cannot complain and say that I don't have the same technology and the same capabilities as the bigger channels, because we're almost there. I'd say we're probably about 90% there. So if you'd like to get the same type of coverage with the same technology, but without having to fight with 50,000 people watching and you can't get your questions answered, I'd like to give you a personal invitation. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I think you'll like our product. I think it looks great. It looks good. It's very nice to have for severe weather. May test it out today for a little while. We're still kind of working out some bugs to kind of improve the product as far as font size and everything. But the alerts are there. The timings are there. We've got some great new technology as far as model data and things that we're using. So again, if you have not subscribed to the channel and you'd like to get that personalized service, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And as always, I appreciate any feedback. Any kind of suggestions, please post those down below. All right, that's y'all's update for today. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.